We do not have an immediate debt crisis, but we all know that we have one looming.
I am not a dictator. I'm the president. We're not going to balance the budget in 10 years. My goal is not to chase a balanced budget just for the sake of balance.
You can't continue to spend money that you don't have. And that's what the president wants to do.
We're not going to balance the budget in 10 years. My goal is not to chase a balanced budget just for the sake of balance.
You can't continue to spend money that you don't have. And that's what the president wants to do.
I am not a dictator. I'm the president.
Ma'am, sorry. What knight lives in that castle over there?
I'm 37.
What?
I'm 37. I'm not old.
Well, I can't just call you man.
You could say Dennis.
I didn't know you were called Dennis.
Well, you didn't bother to find out, did you?
I did say sorry about the old woman, but from behind you looked...
What I object to is you automatically treat me like an inferior.
Well, I am king.
Oh, king, eh? Very nice. And how'd you get that, eh? By exploiting the workers. By hanging on to outdated imperialist dogma which perpetuates the economic and social differences in our society. If there's ever going to be any progress...
Dennis, there's some lovely filth down here. Oh, how'd you do?
How do you do, good lady? I'm Arthur, King of the Britons. Whose castle is that?
King of the who?
The Britons.
Who are the Britons?
Well, we all are. We are all Britons. And I am your king.
I didn't know we had a king. I thought we were an autonomous collective.
You're fooling yourself. We're living in a dictatorship. A self-perpetuating autocracy in which the working classes...
Oh, there you go, bringing class into it again.
That's what it's all about. If only people would...
Please, good people. I am in haste. Who lives in that castle?
No one lives there.
Then who is your lord?
We don't have a lord.
What?
I told you, we're an anarcho-syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week.
Yes.
But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting.
Yes, I see.
By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs.
Be quiet.
But by a two-thirds majority in the case of more...
Be quiet. I order you to be quiet.
Order, who does he think he is?
I'm your king.
Well, I didn't vote for you.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH Sourcing Network. This is the online, on-demand Fastener Talk radio show where we feature conversations with people from around the wild and wacky world we call the fastener industry. And we're glad you've clicked in with us today. Eric Dudas here, and the co-host of Fully Threaded Radio is the fascinating and multi-talented Mr. Brian Musker. Are things looking over at the FCH East facility today, Bri?
Oh, fascinating and multi-talented. I'm not sure that's the wild and wacky world of fasteners.
Well, I'll tell you, with some of the headlines that have been coming through, it's just, it never seems to be stopping. It's been quite a year, huh?
This is true.
And we'll try and get our arms around a lot of that on the program today. It's actually a pretty full episode again, and this is episode number 61 of Fully Threaded Radio, everybody. We're publishing on March 28th, 2013. Since our last episode, as I was mentioning, the fastener industry has seen another slew of really major announcements, and we have coverage of many of them for you on the show today, as Mike McNulty joins us, as always, for the Fastener News Report. This time, he also welcomes the newly elected chairman of the Industrial Fasteners Institute, Mr. Steve Paddock. Steve's going to discuss what he believes to be the primary challenges facing the industry today, and also announces the recipients of this year's IFI Soaring Eagle Awards. Our feature segment today is very special for two reasons. It's a conversation with Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago senior economist, Mr. Bill Strauss, and co-hosting this segment, making his debut appearance on the podcast, it's Bob Baer of Abbott Interfast. Tell you, this is a pretty intense conversation. It's not quite like anything we've ever done on the show previously, but for those of you who want to hear the perspective of someone who is directly impacting this country's economic future, I think you're going to get a lot out of it.
Yes, and we should also briefly note that this interview comes from his talk at the Midwest Fastener Association dinner, which was absolutely fascinating, and a talk that interested lots of us. And he is a master of figures and trying to break them down to meaningful things. Very, very interesting guy.
Yep, absolutely. And to lead all of that off, in just a few moments, we'll talk again with our friend Lou Boyd of the Olander Company. What's turning and what's burning in Silicon Valley? Also, what was the buzz at the Pacific West Fastener Association meeting in Long Beach earlier this month? Well, Lou lays it all out for us. The title sponsor on today's episode of Fully Threaded Radio is Stellfast. For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stellfast. Check out their website at www.stellfast.com. Also sponsoring the podcast today is Trinity Hardware Headquarters, Fastenal, and Fastener Technology International. You know, Brian, if this show was a carton of number 8 screws, you wouldn't be able to stuff in even one more in the box, so we'll get right to it right after this, folks.
Right.
When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stellfast. Since 1976, Stellfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stellfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stellfast today through our website at www.stellfast.com and put us to work for you. Stellfast. Service you deserve, people you trust.
Our hearts are in fasteners, so join us in the heart of the fastener industry for Fastener Tech 13. This is Nancy Rich, Fastener Tech Show Manager, inviting you to join us June 10th through 12th for an event hosted by Midwest Fastener Association and Fastener Technology International and sponsored by Fastener Industry Groups. This is an event produced by the fastener industry for the fastener industry. Its success returns to the industry through scholarships, education, and various other programs. Fastener Tech allows many fastener and fastener-related companies a great opportunity to meet with their industry and source many products in one location. The trade show will feature fastener manufacturers, heat treaters, platers, and other fastener service companies. Fastener Tech will also feature educational and industry informational seminars. You'll also have the chance to enjoy several social events. Your time at Fastener Tech will include great networking opportunities. Fastener Tech 13 will be held at the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center in Rosemont, Illinois. Be part of an event bringing American industry together. More details of this event may be found at www.fastenertech.com or at www.mwfa.net.
Looking for package fasteners of all kinds? How about specials or unique parts that no one seems to carry? At Trinity Hardware Headquarters, we believe in parts done right, and our new catalogue is available online at trinityhardwarehq.com, featuring over 30,000 different types of fasteners available in package quantities, product kits, and assortments, including hundreds of hard-to-find parts as well as the most popular inch and metric sizes. Trinity Hardware Headquarters has locations throughout the Midwest and South and over 400,000 square feet of warehouse space with 18 million pounds of fasteners ready to fill your requirements. Our featured products include number 3 and number 7 head plough bolts, grade 5 and grade 8 carriage bolts, hook bolts, tap bolts, and nuts and washers of all kinds, plus much more. Visit our website at www.trinityhardwarehq.com or give Trinity Hardware Headquarters a call at 888-232-1010. Trinity Hardware Headquarters, for parts done right.
Hi, this is Jackie with Belfast in Chicago. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Been looking at number 8 screws, have you?
Those are pretty small, right, Brian?
Well, they're average size, the size you use around the house. It's not super small.
Well, it's a point well taken, but the analogy, I think, was appropriate. Hey, get with us, folks. We look forward to hearing from you, how we're doing and what you think of the show, where we can improve and so forth. Our email address for that is ftr@fullythreaded.com. We're also out there on Twitter. The handle there is Fully Threaded. Also, we are known to put a few links out there on the Facebook page, and when we borrow things for the show or we talk about subjects that interest us, we put links out there. So if you're a Facebooker, get out to the Fully Threaded Radio Facebook page.
Right, and while you're there, do follow the link that relates to the one of the soundtracks at the beginning of the show to a great movie. The Holy Grail. If you've ever heard of the Monty Python's Flying Circus, this truly is one of the great movies.
It's incredible how many little snippets out of that movie. I just like almost like every episode I could think of one to use, but don't want to beat the dead horse. But man, I couldn't resist on this episode.
I remember that movie came out when I was still living in New Zealand. Actually, early. It's years old, that movie, and that particular little section I remember so well. And it was just typical of Monty Python. I think you missed one little bit out, which was the section where it follows on to say, and the guy says, I'm your king. And the person says, well, I didn't vote for you. The reply is, you don't vote for kings.
Yeah, a little appropriate for what we're going through in this country right now, huh?
Yeah.
Well, like I said, you can never figure out a good way or a good point to cut, because it's just funny all the way through. So.
I know. Well, of course, you could actually play the whole 2 hours of it or hour and a half of the whole movie because all of it is like that.
Well, speaking of people contacting us, I did get another email, and they come in from time to time, people saying, I really like the show, but I wish it was a little shorter.
Right. Well, I was thinking of that, actually.
Which,
sorry.
Here we are trying to speed things up, and we're never very successful at that. But, the point is, I think some of the people who are doing this or making this comment, what we try to do is index the show so you can fast forward to the parts that interest you. And, we have a lot of people also who are on the road and they're in the car or in the air. And, they ask us, man, I wish you could put out a few more hours of this stuff. So, I don't know. I guess you really can't win.
No, that's true. We learned that a long time ago.
Well, speaking of hitting the road, you and I, we spend a lot of our time working on a little thing we call the FCH Sourcing Network, which is at fastenersclearinghouse.com. And we've got members from all across North America. And you and I took a little sojourn and pressed the flesh with a few of our members up in central Wisconsin last week. That was a great, great time, Bri.
It was actually. We started off with actually one of our really early members, and that was Jack Mullins of Endries International. And it was great to go up there. I've talked to Jack over the years, never met him before, so this was really good.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years we're talking to some of these guys and meeting them in person. It's just a thrill. Of course, that was the first day of spring, and it was like 16 degrees in Brillion, Wisconsin, with half a foot of snow on the ground. But, we made the best of it. I got the feeling while we were driving around, I really, a lot of you guys out there, you're doing this all the time. I mean, last episode we had Jackie Ventura on, Marty Nolan from RL English, and so many others. And but this is kind of a new thing for us, and we did 4 meetings on each day. And I tell you, it really, of course, the counts are kind of spread out there, but that's a full day.
Yeah. And I'll tell you the other thing which is really I thought about a lot afterwards was that if we'd done this like 3 or 4 years ago, then we'd have to be online on Google printing out maps so we could make sure we found everything. So this time, everything I used Waze, which is the mapping thing I use on my iPhone, W-A-Z-E. And so everything we did, we just put the address into Waze and it told us how to get there. And we had only one very unfortunate error, which was very unfortunate because it was the only real meeting we had that had absolutely a set defined time. And we came to this really unlikely place in the middle of a housing area and a dead-end road. And Waze was absolutely sure this is where we were meant to be, and we were clearly in the wrong place, unbeknown to us.
Right, but as the crow flies, we were about 15 feet away from our destination.
Right, we just couldn't see it. It was down a snowy bank, and the road had been cut into, and it was a mistake in the mapping in Waze, and so it took us about half an hour to try and get this 15 feet. However, that was only one error, and so it shows you, here you have this thing which is just a phone that can do this great service as a complete navigation device. Okay.
Yeah, well, at least we got a crash tour of Waukesha, Wisconsin. And Nathan and Tim over there at ClearCorp Industrial Sales, they seem to understand, so it worked out well.
Yeah, it just wasn't quite what we intended.
One of the other funny parts was when we were searching for a Starbucks. So your iPhone was chirping away trying to get us to our next call, and I had punched in the directions to the nearest Starbucks in my phone. So we had 2 Siri voices screaming at us as we were driving along, and it was hilarious because we came to one road, and she said, turn right on this road, and then mine said, turn left on this road. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, in the end I gave up and turned mine off, and then it was just proven to be really annoying. However, the fact is that despite all the confusion, there's been so much talk of these maps. I've never really used the Maps application on the iPhone, and I tried it this time. I didn't like it at all. My Waze is 10 times better in my view because it's tied up with a little bit of social networking, and it gives you things like if there are police on the road, not that you'll be speeding, of course, but other people just push a button saying, oh, there's a cop here. And so it comes up, if you're on the road and that's your path, it comes up on your phone. So you see police ahead, a couple of miles or something, or accident or slowed traffic. And it's a huge advantage, I think.
Actually, cruising through Wisconsin, what they need is a little dead deer icon.
Right. We didn't see too many, though. Only one, actually. So, it was a great trip. I'm glad we did it, and I'm glad we met a few people we've talked to but haven't really met before, and so it was cool. So next time we have to try Ohio or probably Michigan, I think.
Yeah, we're definitely going to line up another one of these trips. And the saga of fastenersclearinghouse.com continues. I hope you're all out there using the network, folks, whenever the need comes up to find a hard-to-find part, or if you're looking for an oddball, or if you're just looking for a new vendor, please use the system. There's something around 900,000 listings out there, and we'd be thrilled to have your inventory listed with fastenersclearinghouse.com. We'll drive business your way, and again, the website there is fastenersclearinghouse.com, the FCH sourcing network.
With an S.
Yes, the S is for saga.
Yeah. Superb. The scrubber. Okay.
So, Bri, why don't we get the ball rolling now? And let's do that by bringing on our first guest on today's episode. And he is Mr. Lou Boyd. He's with the Olander Company. Hey, Lou, thanks for joining us again.
Hey, Eric. Nice to hear you again.
Yes. Welcome out to Fully Threaded again.
Thank you.
What are you seeing out there in the market these days? I know you're always a guy who keeps his finger on the pulse, so to speak.
Well, here in Silicon Valley, things are a little tough lately. Things have slowed down considerably from the heyday of 5 or 6 years ago. We are seeing still some movement offshore. I'm sure a lot of people have heard about some of the reshoring, meaning product coming back to the U.S. from overseas. But what we've seen on that is when it comes back to North America, it ends up in Mexico. So I can't say it's really helping us much here in Silicon Valley or in California.
Yeah, they're calling it nearshoring.
Yeah, nearshoring. There you go. It's
Yeah,
close.
right.
Not quite here, but the other thing we see with that is that when that product left 4 or 5 years ago, it was a company's number one product, meaning the volumes were such that they were buying it quarterly. Now, when it comes back, it's slipped down to number 3 or 4 on their list of products, and they buy it as needed. So you don't get the forecasting, you don't get the large volume that they're going to commit to over a quarter's time. They will buy it as needed, meaning you better have it in stock, and they want it, quick, jump, all that. So it's a little bit tougher to plan for some of that business. And like I said, a lot of the OEM and contract manufacturers don't really forecast that product when it comes back, and it's slipped down to that type of level. So it makes it tough.
Yeah.
We are seeing a growth outside of the state of California. Most of the business that we're counting on now comes from outside of the state of California. California, bless our wonderful state, is driving a lot of business out of the state by not offering tax breaks. Yeah, they're making it tough for companies to continue doing business here, and it's a little disconcerting. But that's one of the things that we have to be aware of. That in fact, I'm sure you've seen it when you go to the Fastener show in November in Las Vegas. That there's a lot of people from the states of Missouri and Tennessee and Michigan and so on sitting business. You don't see a booth there for the state of California, so that kind of tells you where it's at.
You don't see one for the state of Illinois either, which is probably very, very close to California, okay?
Yeah, we're neighbors.
Yeah, so
funny how all these politicians seem to get together and they come up with the same stupid ideas.
Right.
Now, it's a point well taken, though. Now, let me ask you this, though. Last time we talked to you, you were seeing a continued, in your estimation, decrease in business leaving the country. Do you still see that, or is it stabilized? I mean,
I think I have seen it stabilize a little bit. It doesn't, some of the costs that are associated with bringing product back from overseas, the shipping costs, have gotten to a level now where you do have to think about it. Before the oil and gas prices started going through the roof here, yeah, there was a consideration of the shipping costs, but it certainly wasn't at the levels that you're seeing now. I know talking to some of the importers in the fastener business, they're saying you do have to account for the cost of freight now. It is a major factor, and I'm sure the OEM level is saying the same thing, that the cost of freight is going to be a hindrance in some cases. I think some of the people involved with with importing from overseas are starting to look at the overall delivered cost of product and just saying, you can save so much on buying a product overseas versus what you can buy it here. There's a lot of hidden costs that people up until now haven't been taken into account, and I think they are starting to be aware of it because it's in your face more now. So you're starting to hear that a little bit more from people who have been sending business overseas, where they're saying, no, we're going to keep it here because in some cases, like in high tech, it's just the time distance thing where, when I'm leaving work at 5 o'clock in the evening here, it's, just starting out business in Indonesia. So it's tough to, if you have a project going over there, you're either going to be working late or you're going to come in, or your counterpart in Asia is going to be coming in early in the morning so you can still talk to them.
Right.
Otherwise, you lose that day lag. I mean, if I email them now in the afternoon here, they won't get it until, the middle of the day, their time, and I'll get back and answer in the middle of the night so I could get it tomorrow. But, it just gums up the work, so to speak.
All right, so those are two considerations that you mentioned, energy and the time difference. Now, those things are do you think those are things that people are just now perceiving because of a certain reason, or is it just they're more in your face because is there a serious reason on that? I mean, what's your read on that, Lou?
Well, it's been more talked about in the national press. When you go to trade shows, people are talking about it. I think it's just people being more aware of the overall cost. I know at the Olander company, we've tried to, tell people that, our cost doesn't include the freight from the factories, that it's here in the valley, you can pick it up today. And that is a consideration versus somebody shipping from, New York or Chicago into California that, hey, there's another $20 freight charge. And now people are starting to associate that with the overseas business. So I think it does help that, people are becoming more aware. Even though it is a global economy, there are certain, hidden costs that we don't think too much about. And just in the last year or so, I'm starting to see more talk about that. So I think it is getting to be a little more noticed.
Now, you had an opportunity to talk with a lot of people in the industry. You were at the Pac-West Fastener Association Spring Conference and Tabletop. That was 2 weeks back. What was the buzz there?
Well, it was a very good show. We had over 200 attendees, including the tabletop. A lot of good suppliers there. A lot of, again, the talk with most of the people you talk to were saying business was okay. It's a little tenuous that we all feel it should be better or could be better, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. I've talked to some people that said, December was the best month they had in 3 or 4 years. And January was so-so, and February fell off the map, and March was doing okay. So, it's not this trend that historically we have seen that as it starts building, as it starts picking up, February would be better than January and March would be better than February, but I'm seeing a lot of herky-jerky movements in that area where it's good for a month, and then it goes down for a month, and then it comes back halfway, and then you might zoom through the roof. And again, a lot of the people we're talking about, their business outside of the state of California, the distributors that were there from, the Oregon, Washington, Arizona, elsewhere in the West Coast, they were doing better than the people in California. The people in California, if you ask them pointed questions, a lot of their business is coming out from out of the area. So, Again, it was a good meeting. We had, like I said, well over 200 people at the tabletop. With the basic Pac-West meeting itself, there was about 100 people there. And it was good to see everybody again. And like I said, everybody is optimistic. We're hearing the right things. Now, in fact, when I got back to the office after the show, it was, geez, can you find out from some of your suppliers what their February was like? And a lot of people I talked to on the supply side said basically the same thing that we saw, that the second half of February just kind of fell off the edge of the table and went down to the bottom and stayed there. So
yeah. I mean, we saw that in the FDI index. I'm sure you heard about that.
See, it's a little interesting to see that everybody, and yet I did have a few people say that no, we didn't see it at all. So it's dependent on who you're dealing with in some cases, or the market that you're targeting. If you're into a certain industry, it seemed to be okay. So, but I think as a general rule, most of the fastener distributors are seeing the same thing, no matter where you are in the country. So it's a little disconcerting. Like I said, I think we all feel it should be better and could be better, and we're wondering why it's not. I've had people tell me that, well, it was Chinese New Year's. Now, what that had to do with my business, I don't really know.
Right.
I had people saying, the sequestering that was going on in Washington was a hindrance. And yet, talking to buyers at the end user level, you get the idea that, that they're playing it pretty darn close to the vest. Nobody wants to forecast. Nobody wants to commit to anything because they don't really know, and they're not too sure about what really is going on. And that's what's disconcerting to me and our company is that, it's hard to get a grasp on what is coming. The days of forecasting and EAUs meaning something, not so much anymore.
I think a lot of people share that opinion, Lou. Did you attend the Porteous open house that was happening in connection with the Pac-West meeting?
I did miss that one. I heard a lot of people did attend that, and it was well received. I understand Porteous had just moved in to a new facility here since the first of the year,
right? And
everybody was pretty impressed with it.
Were people talking a lot about Porteous? I know there's been some rumblings coming out of that camp lately.
Well, they're having a tough time, with the HTI acquisition. They've gotten most of the inventories straightened out, but there's still some pockets that they really don't know what they have. So, and I can appreciate that type of problem. It is certainly a problem that they have to deal with, and they seem to be getting a grasp on it, but it's a big project.
Yeah, I don't know if HTI is necessarily the source of their concern, but
no, there's some other people in the marketplace that are causing them some issues. So,
what about the fishing? We were dying to know if anybody actually went out on the charter boat. Did you hear anything about that, Lou?
Well, I heard it got canceled. There just weren't enough fishermen.
Oh.
Wow.
In fact, I was one of the golfers, and we only had, I think we only had 10 people golfing. So it was usually for the Pac-West group, we usually have 5 or 6 foursomes out there. So it was a little light even on the golfing side. And I don't really know what brought that on, because the weather was certainly beautiful. It was almost 90 degrees, I think, when we were out golfing the day.
Oh,
and it was the golf was fairly cheap. It was at a Navy golf course. So it was a good time. But like I said, we only had 10 people out there. We could have used Eric. We could have used on the fishing boat.
I would have been glad to be there. Well, maybe what the reason is that people are, they're serious about business right now. They've got to get down to it, and that's what they're concentrating on. I can't blame anybody for that. What was your reaction on the sessions that you had at the Pac-West meeting? I know Vicki Lester and the team over there always do a great job. Anything stand out for you as a highlight?
Well, we had Anne-Marie Hoftelen gave a great session on the sales end of things, as she always does.
Right.
Jim McManus, I believe his name was, did a good lean process seminar, which there were a lot of acronyms that I'm really not up to speed with, so it was a little new for me, but it was interesting.
You're not a big fan of TLAs?
No.
Okay, that's 3-letter acronyms.
Yeah, 3-letter acronyms. There you go. I love it. But we did have some good sessions at the executive forum, and the owners forum I heard was very well received. We had a wine tasting put on by the H.W. Eckhart Company, which again was well received, as you could imagine how that is received. But we did have, I thought the meeting was excellent, as most of these are. Vicki has done a great job over the years with our group, and and there's a lot of talk about what NFDA is trying to accomplish on their side, trying to get more people to join, and they're kind of changing their direction a little bit. So I think the next few years is, I was a member of the Pac-West board when we tried to get the LAFA and at that time the WAFTA group together, and it's quite a process. You have a lot of different agendas from people, wanting to maintain their culture. And I like I said, I think the NFDA is going through this right now, where you've got some members who want to hold the line as it's been over the years, and you've got some new members who want to see some different things. So I think there's room for everybody, but it's got to be talked out and hammered out over, in some cases, many years and many meetings. So I think the next few years will be very interesting in that regard.
It's a little trickier than you might think, isn't it?
Yes. Like I said, when I was on the board of WAFTA, I thought it was a slam dunk, but in my 3 years on the board, it didn't happen. And I think it took us 7 years, maybe not quite that long, but it took us quite a while to get the two groups together. And now it's fabulous. I think we did manage to do it right, and we kept the flavor of both of them and melded them into one, and it's worked out perfect.
Yeah, I have never heard one negative comment about Pac-West. I think it's been a success all the way around, and we'll have to see what happens in terms of what you're pointing out with the NFDA. Well, Lou Boyd, you're with the Olander Company. People can get in touch with you through your website, and that's at www.olander.com. Are we going to see you out there in Chicago in June, Lou?
I probably won't be able to make it into Chicago. I will definitely be at the show in Las Vegas again. And we hope to see you at the next Pac-West meeting in Vancouver. Oh, you can count on that. In the fall. Yep. Well, it's been great to have you again, Lou. You're informative, and it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us on Fully Threaded, Lou. Thank you very much. Take care.
Hey, mate.
Brian and Eric, they're online. Fastener Talk Radio Extremist. You're right on with Fully Threaded Radio.
FastenersClearinghouse.com. Search and source from over 500,000 line items, all just a mouse click away and available at no charge. When the need arises, you won't find a better place to locate hard-to-find fastener inventory. It's where you need to be.
This is Joe Truckee of Cardinal Fasteners, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for us.
This is Robert Wanzer, and Fasteners Clearinghouse works for American Imperial.
This is Andy Pell from ScrewCrew.com, and FCH works for the fastener industry.
Join the sourcing network now and show your inventory to a whole new market. Turn slow movers into cash. List up to 10,000 line items. Show them to distributors only or to the world. FastenersClearinghouse.com. It's where you need to be.
Looking for package fasteners of all kinds? How about specials or unique parts that no one seems to carry? At Trinity Hardware Headquarters, we believe in parts done right, and our new catalogue is available online at trinityhardwarehq.com, featuring over 30,000 different types of fasteners available in package quantities, product kits, and assortments, including hundreds of hard-to-find parts as well as the most popular inch and metric sizes. Trinity Hardware Headquarters has locations throughout the Midwest and South and over 400,000 square feet of warehouse space with 18 million pounds of fasteners ready to fill your requirements. Our featured products include number 3 and number 7 head plow bolts, grade 5 and grade 8 carriage bolts, hook bolts, tap bolts, and nuts and washers of all kinds, plus much more. Visit our website at www.trinityhardwarehq.com or give Trinity Hardware Headquarters a call at 888-232-1010. Trinity Hardware Headquarters, for parts done right.
Hey, Fastener people. Let's meet in the middle in Kansas City, Missouri for the All-American Fastener Show, May 8th to the 9th, 2013. This is Heidi Voltrauer, and I'm so excited to have the show in Kansas City at the Intercontinental Hotel on the Plaza. And getting there is easy. Once you catch a direct flight into Kansas City or make the drive, you can park your car and enjoy the hotel and plaza with all of its amazing shops and restaurants right across from the hotel. We will have the golf tournament, booth setup, and of course our famous Fastener Bash on May 8th. And the show will be on the 9th starting at 9 a.m. We've also added a lunch seminar the day of the show. For all your information about the All-American Fastener Show, look at our website at allamericanfastenershow.com. Hope to see all of you in May at the All-American Fastener Show in Kansas City.
radio listeners. This is John Zender, retired executive from Ernest's Machine Products in Cleveland, Ohio, and we're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric, back with you.
You know, last time we spoke to Lou, he was pretty down on the whole situation of the industry leaving California, but he's not quite so down on it now. He seems to have come to terms with it, or it's slowed down.
Maybe there's nothing much left to lose. I don't know.
It's like it used to be in New Zealand was just before it collapsed economically. There used to be a sign at the airport in the main city in New Zealand. Last person to leave the country, please turn the light out.
Well, let's hope it doesn't get that bleak around here. We know on that subject, we have conversations from time to time, more often these days, of course, with economics being on everybody's mind. And there's a company by the name of ITR Economics. A lot of people who are associated with the NFDA know these guys. Alan Bolu is one of the partners there, I believe, with his brother. And these guys really have a pretty amazing crystal ball. A lot of people believe what they say. And I discovered that Alan appeared on a podcast. I'm going to put a link to this up on our Facebook page. The podcast is called Manufacturing Revival Radio. I mentioned this actually in the last episode when our pal from the Reshoring Initiative, Harry Mosier, was on it. But this episode was the February 13th edition, and like I said, I'll put this on our Facebook page. It's about 20 minutes long, so those of you who don't seem to fancy the longer podcast format.
Right, you can switch to another one.
Right. But if you're not familiar with ITR Economics, these guys are heavyweights. That's why the NFDA uses them. They appear and advise at the various meetings of the NFDA. So if you haven't yet exposed yourself, man, this is just going to be an orgy of economic information, Brian, because, of course, as you know, later in the show, we've got our interview with the Fed economist coming up.
Yep.
A lot of good stuff.
Okay.
Also, I've got a email here from Nancy Rich. Received this. She, of course, is the executive director of the Southeastern Fastener Association, among others. And she wants to remind everybody that the CFA Spring Conference and Tabletop is coming up soon. I guess they have something over 30 exhibitors lined up, but apparently there's still room for a few more. So if you're on the fence and you can get down to the Atlanta area around April 16th through the 18th, it's going to be a Fastener hootenanny. Get with Nancy, and I think the actual tabletop is on the 18th. Now, I didn't hear anything about Glow Golf this year, but nothing would shock me about this event, Brian.
Right. Maybe they're not having it since they found that you aren't sure if you're going there yet.
I don't think I carry that much weight. Those guys know how to have a good time. And you can get details and contact information at their website, which is www.thecifa.com. The Fastener News Report is sponsored by Volt Industrial Plastics, Fastenal, and Fastener Technology International. Of course, our other great sponsors on today's episode are Stelfast and Trinity Hardware Headquarters.
Yes, thanks to all of you.
And as always, we appreciate every one of you who tunes into the show and shares Fully Threaded Radio with your friends and fellow fastener enthusiasts. Thank you so much for doing that. Here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Eric and Brian. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored today by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. This is my last report from the original Fastener News Report recording studio in West Akron, Ohio. By the time you hear this, Fastener Technology International will have moved a few miles away to a new location where I will continue to collect, sift, and distribute all the news that, just like me, is focused on the fastener industry. Now, here is today's Fastener News Report. In today's top story, we're going to hear about the latest developments at the Industrial Fasteners Institute, better known to many people as the IFI. Also in today's report, we have some newsmaker headlines from Lejeune Bolt Company, Fastener Tech 13, Philidis Limited, Cardinal Fastener, the Birmingham Fastener Group, Elgin Fastener Group, and Telefast Industries, as well as a back-page report on the true environmental cost of operating an electrical vehicle. We will get to all of that and the IFI story right after this.
Volt Industrial Plastics is the source for all your high-quality plastic fastener needs, and customer service is their #1 priority. With almost 1 million fasteners in stock and same-day shipping on stock items, Volt Industrial Plastics carries inventory so you don't have to. Volt manufactures everything in-house from over 125 different materials, and they're proud to say 100% of their products are American-made. And of course, custom tooling and in-house bagging is available. Contact Volt online at www.voltplastics.com. Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners.
For a selection of hundreds of thousands of fasteners, check out your local Fastenal store or Fastenal.com. We can stock domestic or internationally sourced product locally and keep your bin stock filled for you at no additional expense. We are a 9001-2008 certified company that's made a huge investment in quality control so you don't have to. And if you can't find it on our shelf, we can make it for you at the quantity you need at one of our many manufacturing facilities. Learn more by contacting your local Fastenal store or visiting Fastenal.com today.
You're listening to Mike McNulty's Fastener News Report on Fully Threaded Radio.
Back in March, the Industrial Fasteners Institute, which is based in Independence, Ohio, held its annual meeting in Marco Island, Florida. And at that meeting, they elected a new chairman and vice chairman, and they also gave out their IFI Soaring Eagle Awards. And to get some details on this meeting, we decided to talk to the new chairman, Steve Paddock. He's the president of Bollhoff North America. Hi, Steve. Welcome to the Fastener News Report.
Hi, Mike. Thanks for having me on your show.
You're welcome. Glad you could join us. Now, you guys were down there in Marco Island, Florida, which is obviously probably a little nicer weather than what we're experiencing up here in Ohio or what you're feeling up there in Detroit. What can you tell us about the meeting and about the election of the chairman, vice chairman?
Sure. Well, we held our annual meeting down there, and you're right, the weather was a whole lot better than here. And I was honored to be elected our chairman for the coming 12 months. It's a one-year term. Along with Mark Quebman, who's with Semblex Corporation, will be my vice chairman, and Mark will be the incoming chairman a year from now. So we're honored to be given the assignment. Whether we're the right guys for the job, I guess time will tell, but certainly eager to contribute in whatever way we can.
12 months is not a long time, so I know you guys are diving right into your duties. What are some of the challenges that you see that the fastener industry is facing, and what role, if any, can the IFI play in that?
Sure. Well, if there's one thing that sticks out in my mind, we have a void of talent available in the general economy, and have had a hard time filling positions in manufacturing, engineering, quality, and other roles. And that, combined with an aging workforce, which many of our member companies have, puts us in a jam in terms of finding good people, filling positions, and sustaining our workforce over the long haul. And so, if there's one challenge that sticks out in my mind that faces our industry, that's it. We've addressed that partially with a recruiting video the Institute has put together called Fastening a Career, which can be found on YouTube. But it's a video we put together in an effort to help young people understand that there's a real career opportunity in manufacturing, and in particular fastener manufacturing. Our industry may not be as sexy as Silicon Valley or other businesses, but we think we have a pretty interesting value proposition in terms of a long-term career path that many of our companies can offer. And our membership tends to be family-owned businesses that take a long view and generally provided some pretty lasting career opportunities for people. So if that's a challenge, that's one we're certainly facing and trying to address it head on. But the reality is that there's a lack of good, skilled talent out there, and to the extent we can help recruit, develop, and train people, we're going to work hard at it.
Well, it sounds like a good challenge and a good approach, and I've heard that from other people, which always kind of puzzles me when you have high levels of unemployment in the United States, and then you hear people involved in manufacturing, they can't get good workers, and
there
just
seems
a gap.
to be a real disconnect between available workers and available skilled workers.
Right. Now, I'm looking at the IFI website right now, which is available at www.indfas.org, and I see the video is posted on there as well as being available. I mean, it's a link directly to the YouTube. It's about 10.5 minutes long. Seems like it'd be good, worthwhile to visit that. So, good luck with that.
Especially if you're looking for a job.
Right. And I know you guys do a lot of work in training and standards and things like that, and also involved with the Fastener Training Institute and different programs you put on.
Yes. Joe Greenslade is our technical director at the IFI, leads that effort, and certainly training is a big piece of Joe's role, both with the Fastener Training Institute, an organization we've partnered with in terms of putting on classes and seminars, and our aerospace division, which we call Division 2, has partnered with El Camino College in the Los Angeles area to help train specifically people interested in a career as a manufacturing operator with cold heading equipment, machining equipment, and various other fastener production methods. So again, we're working hard to train people, and Joe Greenslade has been active with the Fastener Training Institute, and Pat Mead with El Camino College.
You guys are doing a lot of good training. Now, you mentioned that the fastener industry might not be that exciting or attractive, but I can tell you, a lot of people and a lot of families have made good living and supported their families and their endeavors for a lot of years. And there's some people in the industry that have really been at it a long time and made some good contributions. And some of those folks were recognized at your annual meeting when you gave out the Soaring Eagle Awards, which I guess these are people that make outstanding contributions to the fastener industry. What can you tell us about this year's winners?
Correct. Well, these awards we give out sometimes on an annual basis, but if we don't have what we feel are deserving winners, we don't give them out every year. And this year we had two winners. We have a technology award and a leadership award. And Bengt Blendolf was the recipient of our technology award this year. Bengt, we could easily consider one of the foremost influences in terms of fastening technology, and certainly one of the world experts when it comes to fasteners. And he's been quite influential in his efforts to share his expertise with others. And that's really how Bengt has become an icon, for lack of a better term, in our industry. He's published more than 100 articles on various joining methods, fastening concepts, and then has taught a variety of courses and seminars over the years. And probably few could claim to have taught more people in this industry about fastener technology than Bengt. So we were glad to present him with this award, and it was certainly well earned and deserved. And the other recipient was Barry McLean, who I happen to know quite well. I worked for Barry for a number of years at McLean Fogg, and Barry's been a leader in this industry for 50 plus years now, and he's an entrepreneur at heart, a guy that built McLean Fogg from a $3 million business to what today is a $1 billion business, and from 60 employees to now about 3,000. So not a bad track record. And he's been a great steward of the Institute, of the McLean Fogg Company, which is a family business now approaching its 90th anniversary, spanning 4 generations of ownership and management. And Barry's been a terrific supporter, he and the company both, of the Industrial Fasteners Institute for 60 years or so. His father was a chairman in the 50s, Barry in the 80s, and so he's been a real asset to the Institute, and we were glad to give him this award for leadership as well.
Well, those are definitely two good choices to receive those awards, and two good stories, and it kind of ties into the idea, you can make a good career and a good living in the fastener industry. Now, I see that, the Industrial Fasteners Institute was founded in 1931, and it says here it represents the interests of North American mechanical fastener manufacturers. I know you also have different divisions of, I think, suppliers and some aerospace and automotive divisions. Can you give us a quick summary for our listeners of what exactly how the Industrial Fasteners Institute is organized?
Sure. The group is made up of 4 divisions. Division 1 serving the general industry, Division 2 representing our aerospace fastener manufacturers, Division 3, which we call our automotive industry fastener group, is focused on automotive. And then we have an associate suppliers division we call ASD, which represents all of the major suppliers to the fastener industry, whether it be steel, heat treat services, plating, or coating services. And so those 4 groups make up the IFI. And you're correct, the Institute is there to represent, support manufacturers in North America in the fastener industry. I would say we're a resource. If I were to think of or describe to you the objectives of the Institute, number 1, we're a resource to our members in terms of technical information, standards, providing up-to-date information on industry and economic trends. Second, it's a networking forum. We have 2 major annual meetings, a fall meeting and a spring meeting. And these meetings represent terrific networking opportunities for our members with each other, with their suppliers, and from time to time we have various outside speakers come in and talk about different topics that might be relevant to the industry. And then we talked a lot about training earlier, which is a big piece of what we do. And then last, but certainly not least, we're a voice for our members in Washington when it comes to topics that are on the legislative docket that may have an influence on our membership. So those 4 buckets, I think, is where I would characterize our time is spent in trying to support our members.
I know you guys have been doing a good job for a long time, and I'm looking online again at your membership list. If listeners are interested, they can go again to indfas.org, click on membership info, and then click on IFI member list, and you've got 3 different categories there. You've got the fastener manufacturer members, then associate members, and affiliate members. So looks like altogether over 120 different companies there if people want to take a look at that.
Yes.
Now, wrapping up here, let you give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself and about Bolhoff North America.
Sure. Well, I've been in the fastener business most of my career. It seems once you've been in the business for a while, you
can't get out.
Can't get out. That's a good way to put it. Or don't want to is a better way to put it. But I spent 10 years or so with McLean Fogg, and then the last 5 years with Bolhoff. Bolhoff is also a family company based in Bielefeld, Germany, celebrating 135 years in business. So a long-term, another example of a long-term family enterprise in the fastener business. And our company is focused on, I guess, a variety of niches, but in particular, trying to find unique joining solutions that enable lightweight vehicle design is where our efforts in terms of R&D are focused. And that might come in the form of various mechanical joining methods, blind fasteners, plastic fasteners. We have a real broad offering, I would say, but if I were to characterize what our focus is, it's really on finding unique solutions to help enable lightweight joining. We're roughly a $500 million company, globally speaking, and operating in 22 countries, manufacturing in 9 of those, and had a presence in North America since about the year 2000 from a manufacturing perspective, and longer as a distributor. That's a quick synopsis of us.
That sounds good. How are you guys seeing business this year, or expectations? And
we're off to a pretty good start. I think any of us that went through the downturn of 3 years ago, I think say that with some trepidation, wondering, is this going to happen again or anytime soon? But our business has started off fairly strong. The bulk of our business is automotive, and that industry continues to recover nicely from the 2008, 9, 10 crisis, for lack of a better term, that our industry faced. And so automotive has come back. Our general industry business is a little softer than we anticipated, and that is a closer reflection of the general economy, which continues to barely eke out 1 or 2% growth. And I think the U.S. economy's got a long way to go in terms of getting back to healthy growth. And until that happens and general economic conditions really improve, our non-automotive business may take longer to recover. The automotive piece has recovered in a cyclical fashion, getting back to pre-crisis levels, but we're not there yet, and so there's still some pent-up demand in the market.
Yeah, the way I like to look at it is if you survive the downturn, you're stronger and maybe ready for anything.
Yeah, I'd like to think so, but I'm not sure.
And you're a survivor too, so everybody's who's still in it is surviving and ready to go. Well, that sounds pretty good. Automotive is recovering pretty nicely, and that's what we're hearing also on the general economics, just kind of creeping along. But hopefully that changes in the future.
You do too.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for joining us, and I want to wish you luck with being the chairman of the IFI, and also to Mark as the vice chairman. And hope that you have a good result with trying to get some more workers out there into the fastener industry, and that you enjoy everything that the IFI is doing.
As do we. Thanks, Mike, and thanks for having me on your show.
All right, thanks for joining us. It was Steve Paddock. He's the president of Bullhoff North America, and now the chairman for the next 12 months of the Industrial Fasteners Institute. Next up, today's top Fastener Newsmaker headlines. Lejeune Bolt Company has opened a Western division in Chino, California. The 16,000 square foot warehouse will supply fasteners and tools to steel fabricators, erectors, and contractors in California, Arizona, Nevada, Utah, and New Mexico. Lejeune is headquartered in Burnsville, Minnesota. Online registration is now open for Fastener Tech 13, the fourth staging of the All Fastener Industry event in the heart of the fastener industry. To register for a free 2-day exhibit pass, as well as for any of the educational or networking events, visit mwfa.net or fastenertech.com. The deadline for the free exhibit pass and the discounted seminar rates is June 3rd, 2013. Metis Partners, with offices in Glasgow, UK, and Berkeley, California, is seeking to sell the intellectual property assets of Philidus Limited, a lock nut and specialty fastener maker located in England. Reports indicate that the company is closing this month after losing its largest customer. In 2011, the company recorded sales of about $8 million on production of 85 million fasteners. Bill Bowick is the new president of Cardinal Fastener, a Cleveland, Ohio-based manufacturer of hot-formed, large-diameter quality fasteners. Bill's fastener industry experience includes executive work at SPS Technologies and Textron Fastening. The Birmingham Fastener Group, headquartered in Birmingham, Alabama, has made changes in its purchasing group. Jerry Warren has been promoted to corporate purchasing manager, and Tony Nelson has joined the company as the new Birmingham Fastener distribution purchasing manager. Warren has 25 years of experience at Birmingham, and Nelson is a 21-year fastener industry veteran with previous work at Flex Alloy, Fastener Supply Company, and Martin Fastening Solutions. And our top newsmaker headline is that the Elgin Fastener Group, based in Batesville, Indiana, has acquired Telefast Industries of Berea, Ohio. Telefast was initially founded in 1983 as a nut maker for distributors, but today it manufactures both internally and externally threaded products for several markets, including distribution, automotive, agriculture, construction, government, and aftermarket MRO. This latest move continues Elgin's recent string of fastener industry acquisitions, and it allows the group to expand its operations into nut manufacturing. The Elgin Fastener Group is now made up of 8 fastener manufacturers, as well as a metal finishing company and a fastener importer. Finally, let's turn to the back page for a report on the total environmental cost of green cars. In the fastener industry, we have heard a lot about the reshoring of manufacturing operations based on looking at the total cost of ownership, not just the sticker price of purchasing a fastener. This is good advice for comparing any purchasing activity, including the trendy topic of evaluating the environmental benefits of green automobiles. The Wall Street Journal published an analysis of the actual environmental cost of making and operating electric cars. Here's what they found. The green electric cars aren't really that green. Electric cars don't emit carbon dioxide when they run, but energy is used to make them and to recharge their batteries. Studies show that tons of carbon dioxide is expended to make electric cars, especially when it comes to making the lithium battery. When an electric car is finally made, it is responsible for 30,000 pounds of CO2 emissions versus 14,000 pounds for making a regular car. Electric cars are recharged with electricity that is made usually by burning fossil fuels, so operating one isn't carbon-free either. Studies show that an electric car indirectly emits about 6 ounces of CO2 per mile versus 12 ounces of direct emissions per mile for a conventional car. That's a savings of exactly 6 ounces of CO2 for every mile driven. But when you consider the extra 16,000 pounds of carbon dioxide used to make the green car, you have to drive 43,000 miles in the electric car to get to the break-even point with the gasoline car. By that time, you might need a new lithium battery, which just might make the electric car owner turn green. Even if the battery and the electric car were to last for 90,000 miles, then according to the report, the net carbon savings would amount to a total of $44 in climate damage savings. That's a tiny savings, especially considering all the government subsidies going into the production of electric cars. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International bringing you the Fastener News Report. Remember to send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com. Oh, and our new street address is 1741 Akron Peninsula Road. Everything else stays the same: phone, fax, email, and website.
Up next, it's Fed economist Bill Strauss, along with special guest host Bob Baer on Fully Threaded.
Hi everyone, it's Brian Musker. If you're listening to Fully Threaded, then you're no doubt aware of the FCH sourcing network found at fastenersclearinghouse.com. You've probably also heard about our legendary scrubber software that makes listing your inventory on FCH a snap. But have you heard about the new FCH SmartLink interface? With SmartLink, users of Business Edge, InSequel, and Distribution One have a new weapon in the war against excess inventory, because each of these platforms now links directly to the FCH scrubber system through an automated interface. The best part is that this new tool is available at no additional charge to FCH members who use Business Edge, InSequel, or Distribution One. With SmartLink, you can keep your inventory listings up to date with the click of a button, so it's a win-win for all FCH users. The new FCH FastLink interface is really big news, and we'll be thrilled to have your company using it. Business Edge, InSequel, and Distribution One users should contact their software provider for details, or just call me, Brian Musker. You can reach me through the FCH website at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com. That's fasteners with an S, and the S is for scrubber.
When top quality and outstanding service are at the top of your list in fastener suppliers, turn to Stellfast. Since 1976, Stellfast has grown to become an industry-leading importer and manufacturer of the highest quality industrial fasteners, specialty items, and automotive parts. Our array of facilities across North America and in Asia, along with full quality control labs and ISO 9001-2008 certifications, ensure the highest quality parts, and at Stellfast, they're delivered with undisputed service excellence. We're family-run and dedicated to your success. Our customers have come to depend on the expertise of our staff and the quality of our products. We also offer a wide range of secondary services to meet some of the toughest requirements you might have. Contact Stellfast today through our website at www.stellfast.com and put us to work for you. Stellfast. Service you deserve, people you trust.
Real cap screw gangster never runs his mouth, cause real cap screw gangsters don't stop fights. Posers always flashing a big blanket, showing all his boys how he locked them. Real cap screw gangsters don't flex nuts, cause real cap screw gangsters know they got them. And everything's cool in the mind of a gangster, cause cap screw gangsters think deep. Up 365 a year, 24/7. Real cap screw gangsters don't sleep. And all I gotta say to you wannabe, gonna be cap screw hustling pranksters. When the biz slows down, what the heck you gonna do? Dang, it feels good to be a gangster. Making jobs and helping folks pay their bills. Although I was born in a middle-class home, now I'm at the top making deals. Dang, it feels good to be a cap screw gangster. I'm the one that you don't really know. Riding around town in a drop-top Benz, hitting peeps in the 224. Now cap screw gangsters come in all shapes and colors. Some went broke in the past. This cap screw gangster is a smart one. Started changing with the time, so I'll last. And all I gotta say to you wannabe, gonna be cap screw hustling pranksters. When the orders slow down, what the heck you gonna do? Dang, it feels good to be a gangster. Oh yeah, that's right, Poplisky. What you gonna do? TS, what you gonna do? You know what you gonna do. Cause you a gangster.
This is Russ Dorn with Timberline Fasteners. You're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Well, we're going to continue to break new ground on Fully Threaded Radio, this time on two fronts. First off, we're going to have an economist with the Federal Reserve. And that's certainly something that we've never had. And also on this episode, we've got a guest host who's going to be interviewing our featured segment interviewee today. And that person is from Abbott Interfast, Mr. Bob Baer. Bob, welcome to Fully Threaded.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate you having me on for first time, and looking forward to the interview with the Federal Reserve. And we'll see how it goes. Should be some fun.
I think you're right. So Abbott Interfast, you are based out of Wheeling, Illinois. You're best known probably for your lock nuts, and I guess your OEM market is cold-headed specials, right?
That's correct. We're Wheeling, Illinois. We've been around since 1948. We're known for nylon insert lock nuts, and actually we're more known for screw machine specials amongst our OEM customers as well as cold-headed product.
Got it. Well, we've knocked heads a couple of times at the MWFA meetings, and most recently that was the dinner meeting where our guest Bill Strauss was presenting. And I got to tell you, and it could be Bill Strauss or it could be any of the other dinner meetings that we have, you always ask the most insightful questions, I got to tell you. And I thought this would just be a fantastic opportunity for you to make your debut appearance on the podcast.
Well, I appreciate the compliment. I always try to contribute to the meetings. I think the MWFA does a great job of bringing in people and, them taking the time to come in and talk to all of us. I feel like we owe it to them to try to ask some educated questions and get something out of it. So it also helps me kind of focus on listening to the speaker.
Well, we're going to bring Bill on here in just a moment. You have any ideas before we do about what we're going to hear?
Well, the seminar, you were there also, was very interesting. He held the audience attention for well over an hour and a half. It certainly wasn't boring. It was a lot of information, and we had a lot of questions, but unfortunately, time ran out. We did not get to ask many of them. So I have a few questions penciled in here, but it'll be really interesting to see what he does in a setting where you don't have an audience in front of you and what he talks about. I don't know. How about you? What do you think you're going to focus on with him?
Yeah, I agree. I think it will be interesting to see because it is a different format. I'm going to try and discuss or address the QE issue because I think that's what most people are wondering about right now. We don't have a lot of time. He thinks in very large concepts. So I think this is probably going to be a segment of Fully Threaded that is not going to be to everybody's taste, but I think the people who are really interested in what's going on in depth in the economy are going to get a lot out of it.
Yeah, he's definitely a macro vision type guy. I think all these Federal Reserve guys have to be. And so I guess we should probably also tell our audience maybe to try to get yourself into that mindset, that frame of mind where you're thinking globally and not just about your company and your situation, although in the end that's really what many of us are interested in, how that trickles down and affects all of us.
Yeah, great point. Very good point. At this juncture, I'd like to introduce our guest for this segment, and he's William Strauss. He's a senior economist and economic advisor at the Economic Research Department of the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, and he's been in that position since 1982. Bill, thank you so much for joining us on Fully Threaded Radio.
Oh, happy to join you guys.
Well, last time we spoke with you, it was at the Midwest Fastener Association dinner meeting. That was a few weeks back, and I got to tell you right now, I commend you. You spoke for probably almost 2 hours. I don't think I saw you look at any notes even one time aside from glancing at the slides. And, of course, needless to say, you didn't have any teleprompter, so good for you.
And I don't get myself in too much trouble without the teleprompter. So, yeah, that's an accomplishment.
I think at one point during the presentation, the slides even went out on him, and he was still good.
Yeah, you're a pro. Now, you are also affiliated with DePaul University and the University of Chicago, correct?
That's correct. I teach both those schools part-time.
Well, you're a real pro, that's for sure. The information you shared with us at the dinner meeting was, I've never seen that many people riveted to economic conversation as they were that evening. So once again, we really appreciate you coming back. Hopefully we can get a little bit more in depth on one of the big questions that I think is on a lot of people's minds these days, and that has to do with what we lay people think of as the money supply or the related to the quantitative easing issues that are always in the news these days. And I don't think a lot of people have a real good grasp on it, frankly, and hopefully you can clear that up. But just before we touch on that subject, if you could, give us just a brief primer on what is the Fed, what does it do, and what's its role in the money supply in our government? How do we get our arms around this just for the conversation?
Sure. So the Federal Reserve is the central bank of the United States. Each of your major countries will have their own central bank, and they're formed in different ways, such as in the European Union, or the Eurozone, they have the ECB, the European Central Bank, you have the Bank of England, and so forth. Well, here in the United States, we have the Federal Reserve, which is set up in a very unique fashion where we have both a group that is based in Washington known as the Board of Governors, and that's the leaders of that are 7 individuals that are appointed by the President of the United States. They serve 14-year terms. They also need to be, I should mention, confirmed by the U.S. Senate. They serve 14-year terms staggered. One every 2 years comes up. So they're fairly long-length terms, but not quite like a Supreme Court justice. But nonetheless, the view is that these individuals, since they have such a long term, will not be under as much political pressure to follow through with what somebody has put them in place to do. In addition to that, of the 7 governors, one of them will be selected to be chairman of the Board of Governors. And the current chairman, of course, is Ben S. Bernanke. The chairman is given a 4-year term, which can be put up for another term, and so they can continue going on. In fact, Chairman Greenspan served from August of '87 until January of 2006, I believe it was. And so that was one of our longest lived chairmen. So quite a lengthy time period, and it's actually beyond the 14-year term for Greenspan, because he wound up finishing up an unexpired term, so he got a full term on top of that on his own. In addition to the Board of Governors, you have reserve banks, regional reserve banks set up around the country. There are 12 of those, and each of those have a president, and those presidents are selected by the local board of directors that comprises each of the reserve banks. And there are 9 people on the board of directors, and these individuals, again, pick the president. And the role of the president, in large part, is to come to Washington to provide insight into conditions in their local economy, and as well as their view on what proper policy should be. And that makes the Fed very, very important from the standpoint that, having these 12 individuals, it is not just the 7 in Washington, talking to their local business people and having more of a beltway perspective. When our president in Chicago, Charles Evans, goes to Washington, he's reporting on conditions that are unique to the Midwest economy, how our automotive sector is doing, how the heavy machinery producers like Caterpillar and Deere and CNH are doing, how the steel industry is doing, the pharmaceutical industry, which we have a large presence here. So there's a lot of manufacturing, a lot of agriculture that makes up our district, and that information gets reported. So again, it has the diversity of our economy reflected by these 19 individuals that serve on the Federal Mark Committee.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, and that speaks to the mechanics of the process, and that's kind of an interesting thing. I really respect the notion that you threw in there, that it's diversified geographically at least. So I have to imagine that's also across business sectors. What is the principal role of the Fed? What does it do for us?
Well, we have a couple of main things that we do, one of which is regulating the banking sector, or at least a good portion of the banking sector. In addition to that, the role, especially one that I get involved with, is with regard to what is the proper monetary policy for the country. Monetary policy is, in essence, kind of figuring out what is the proper amount of interest rates or the money supply. Ultimately, how much credit is available to allow the economy to expand, but expand not too rapidly, that things could generate inflationary pressures, but also have enough of what we call flexible money supply, so that the economy can expand without being restrained, as what was happening, say, before the Fed was created back in 1913, with the restrictive type of money growth that was happening when we were on the gold standard.
Yeah, when you say money supply, Bill, you're obviously referring to, we're talking about the amount of money that's printed and put out to circulation?
Well, that's only part of it. In fact, it's only a small part of the ultimate money supply. The money supply, when we think about that, it would include, yes, the currency in circulation. In addition to that, it would also include the amount of money that is in checking accounts. It is also including the amount of money that are in short-term time deposit accounts, what are called, these what you think of as savings accounts. And it's basically this concept of liquidity. How rapidly can you take an asset and be able to convert it into something that is money-like? And so that's where a treasury bill would not be viewed as much of a money source, because if you went to a restaurant, had a nice meal, and presented a $10,000 treasury bill to the restaurant, they're going to have real difficulties making change for you and making a transaction happen with that. Whereas with cash or a check that you write, or the fact that you can access your savings accounts fairly readily without penalties, that's where we define that as the money supply, which that definition would classify under what we call M2.
Okay.
So we understand now that the Fed controls the money supply both by allowing the Treasury to print, and you can explain the mechanics of how that works if you want, and then also through interest rates, and that affects how money is moving. So those are the roles really of the Fed, as I understand it from what you've described. So this comes back to the question that we really want to get our arms around if we can. And again, what we're hearing now is we've got this QE3, or some people are calling it QE infinity, and correct me again if I'm wrong, but we're printing or creating $85 billion per month that is being included now in the money supply. And I'm not sure if that's M1, 2, 3, or whatever that is. Please explain it. How
Sure.
is this? What is it? What are we talking about when we say this?
So let's talk about the policy action. So historically, the Fed's primary tool for implementing monetary policy would be trying to control and set the federal funds rate. The federal funds rate is one of the shortest term interest rates you can get. It's an overnight lending rate between financial institutions. That is a rate that was brought down very quickly during the financial crisis. In fact, by for those who remember, the financial crisis came to a head in September of 2008. Well, by December of 2008, just a few months after that, the federal funds rate was brought down to basically 0 to 25 basis points, or 0.25%, and it has sat there since then, all the way through today, late March, and that in fact. There are certain guidelines that say that the Fed should have taken that rate even lower than 0. There's a rule out there called the Taylor Rule, which is a guideline for what the federal funds rate should be. And certain measurements of that rule said that the Fed should have set that interest rate at a -4 to -5%. How you actually would have gotten a nominal interest rate like the Fed funds rate to become negative, we never could figure out how to do that effectively. So that was a hampering with one of our key policy tools. But that didn't stop the Fed from doing monetary policy, if you want to think about it, kind of the old-fashioned way, which is to focus on the money supply itself. And to that end, the Fed took its balance sheet, which is only a part of the money supply. And I should also point out that a lot of people talk about the Fed printing money, or central bank is printing money. In fact, as you correctly stated, the Fed does not print the money. The U.S. Treasury prints it. We buy it from them when a currency out into the marketplace. We buy it from them at printing cost, roughly 12.5 cents for a note. But what the Fed does through its policy actions, such as what we call our LSAP, large-scale asset purchase, what the public sector has dubbed quantitative easing, and there's no real difference in terms of arguing the naming convention on that. But what we are doing is we are taking a non-monetary asset, but a financial asset, such as a mortgage-backed security or a treasury security. We are taking that out of the marketplace, and we're putting that on our books. In exchange of that, we are putting out money. We are putting out financial instruments that are basically accessible in the form of money. So our balance sheet prior to the financial crisis was sitting at about $800 billion. And it has gone up to nearly $3 trillion at this point. So there has been a more than tripling of the Fed's balance sheet, or what we call our monetary base. But ultimately, there's more to it than than just that, because the money supply is significantly larger than just the monetary base. The M2 is nearly 4 times the size of the monetary base. And how is it larger? Well, it's not just the Fed that can create money. Anytime any of your listeners have gone out to borrow money from a financial institution, whether it was to buy a car, take out a student loan, a mortgage, whatever, credit card debt, whatever they borrowed money on, in essence, the act of lending by the financial institution adds to the money supply. So when we talk about what is the proper money supply, well, it's an amount that has to be growing with the economy as the economy expands, and that's what's referred to as having an elastic money supply, and that's what we try to accomplish. So even though we are seeing very significant gains in our monetary base, in fact, if we go back from 2007 to today, it's been rising at about a 22% rate, 21.9 to be exact.
What does 85 billion per month equate to, Bill?
What do you mean by equate to? What kind of a growth rate?
Yes.
I don't have that percentage in my head or calculated.
I mean, could you hip shot it? I mean, it seems pretty significant. I don't know, but it seems big.
Not when you're at $3 trillion. I mean, so at 85 additional billion, and actually it's not a pure 85 billion because it's the net effect is only about 40. I think it's 40 some odd billion, because part of what's happening is that the size of the balance sheet, some of that is retiring over time. For example, we have mortgage-backed securities. Well, mortgages get paid off. People move, so they pay them off. Some people are, just getting rid of debt over time. In addition, some of it is a vintage stock that, if it was a 30-year mortgage and it's about to end, when it ends, it moves off of our books. So part of that amount is actually replacing to sustain the level of the balance sheet. So on a net basis, we're only adding that roughly, I think it's about 45 billion a month to it. So you could do the math, 45 billion times 12, and take the base of 3 trillion, and you can come up with a growth rate. But nonetheless, 21.9% average annualized growth rate since 2007 is very large. That being said, with regard to inflation and what are the inflationary impacts of that, one has to look at what's been happening to the money supply. Milton Friedman, Nobel Prize-winning professor from the University of Chicago, famously said that inflation always and everywhere is a monetary phenomena. But to that end, you have to look at the money supply, not the monetary base, because his reference is with regard to the money supply. And while the monetary base has been rising at over 20%, the money supply, M2, over this period since 2007 has been rising at a rate that's significantly less than that. Right now it's going up by 6.4%. And something you want to think about with regard to nominal GDP growth in relationship to that. And so that's been rising a lot more slowly. And I think had we not increased the monetary base as rapidly as we have, you would not be seeing the same kind of impact on the money supply growth. And in fact, you might actually have seen quite a bit more weakness happening on the money supply as well as then inflation, which I should also point out, inflation since 2007, including food and energy prices, everything all in, has been rising at a 2.2% rate since 2007. So that has been remaining all in all well contained.
How far back does that inflation rate go? I mean, prior to that, what was our inflation? It seems to me over the last couple decades, inflation hasn't really been an issue.
Oh, I think I don't think that's quite true. In fact, the inflation path has been coming down quite significantly. If you hold on one second, I can probably bring up
I guess my point is I remember a time back in the 90s when it was really high.
Oh yes, no,
It's come down and stayed down.
Yes, I mean, and some people have referred to this whole phenomena as the Great Moderation, where it just seems to have come down and stayed, and as you indicated, stayed low over this period. And trying to figure out exactly what's been a key driver of that is been a lot of discussion of exactly what has led to that net result. But the net result is that inflation, all in all, has stayed, as you said, relatively contained. And let's see, if you look at, I've got a chart over here, and it looks like during the 70s, you're probably looking at an inflation rate that averaged, I would say in the upper single digits, so probably 9%. During the 80s, it came down to average something probably around a 5% rate. And then during the 90s, it came down and has stayed down since then, with some volatility there, but nonetheless, it has stayed in the range of between 0 and 5% over this period of time. And like I said, since 2007, it's averaged at 2.2%.
What do you say to people who say that there's all this money being pumped into the system to somehow offset all of the runaway spending that government is involved in right now, and that this debt is going to be paid back with inflated dollars, and therefore the inflation is going to have to really increase quite a bit for that all to work?
Right.
What's that scenario say to you?
Well, I think it's a legitimate concern. I think that when you talk about countries that tend to get themselves in trouble in terms of a fiscal position, one of the ways of getting out of it is to hope that you get a large amount of inflation, because inflation benefits debtors, makes what they're paying back worth less and easier, and it hurts the creditors. But that's the reason why you want to have an independent central bank, because the Fed has stated on numerous times that we're not going to let that happen. That is not the goal of monetary policy. We have promised the American people that we're going to keep inflation under control. And in fact, if anything, with all the slack that we're seeing in the economy, inflationary measurements, whether you look at the top line inflation numbers or the ones that remove food and energy prices, have been experiencing actually some disinflation, a weakening of prices over the last year.
I think I remember that from your chart at your presentation. It just doesn't feel, I guess you take those two things out of it and it still really doesn't feel like negative inflation.
Well, I wouldn't say it's negative inflation. Again, it's still, prices are still going higher, but the pace of increases is not rising as rapidly as it has in the past. Part of this, I think, is certainly an individual could have a spending pattern where they tend to have consuming things that are going up in value compared to others. So we have to think about more of the typical American or the typical consumer, which is what the Bureau of Labor Statistics attempts to figure out when they put together the market basket. I think it's a bit of human psychology where people tend to focus on the items that are going up in value and think about that as being a much more important part of their market basket as compared to the items that are either not going up or in fact going down in price. So as an example, I will often throw out there the fact that when you think about technology, the fact that a person buying a 60-inch television. Well, if a person was going out to buy a 60-inch television a few years ago, you are going to be paying $15,000 for that television. I know somebody who actually spent that kind of money.
Wow.
But today, you can buy that same 60-inch television for less than $1,000, probably a better one in terms of quality. But do people think about that and say, wow, that has really improved my living standard, my spending, purchasing power? No, they think about it as their God-given right to have less expensive electronics over time. And they bank it without thinking about how that has changed their life and allowed them to not spend as much on that television compared to what they would have had to have spent in the past. So I think there's some disconnect sometimes with the way people think about their spending patterns. They see things going up, and that's what they focus on. When things go down or they get a better value, it kind of goes aside, like I'm entitled to that and I don't need to think more about it.
Just out of curiosity, was that guy who bought the $15,000 TV, was he an employee of the Fed?
He was not. He was not. He was a retired judge here in Chicago. And when I pointed out the fact that that it's going to go down in value or down in price if you waited, he's like, Bill, I'm retired. How many more years do I have to enjoy this? And so from his standpoint, it made perfect logical sense why he was making that purchase. I waited a few years, and I picked up a very nice TV for a fraction of that, and it's 3D TV, in fact, so it even has more features than my buddy's television, and, at a substantially lower cost. And as an economist, I understand the value that I gained through that. I can tell you just another little anecdote that my very first job was being a golf caddy back in Oceanside, New York, and I caddied my whole summer. And with the savings that I was able to put aside, what did I wind up buying was a 12-inch black and white television that I think I wound up spending, if I remember correctly, something like $75 back then. And when you think about what $75 back in the early 70s would be worth today, you realize that black and white television is probably equal to that 60-inch, flat screen television today, in terms of how much I spent on it, and certainly relative to my income back then.
Right.
So would you say, Bill, that generally we think in terms of not what I would call those extra items, like, as you mentioned, the big screen TVs and the nice cars. But when we look at inflation, we tend to focus on the very needed things every day, the necessities, the gas, the food, and those things. It's hard to ignore the price increases on those, and at the same time recognize the benefits you talked about.
That's an excellent point. In fact, some people have come out with what's referred to as kind of a nuisance index, kind of the stuff that you need to be reaching into your wallet and purse and dealing with on a daily basis. And that's why, some people have pointed out that people tend to think that their spend on gasoline purchase, for example, they tend to think it's a much larger share of their spending dollar than it actually is. Because you're purchasing weekly, going to the gas station, fueling up, and you're paying attention to that. Whereas, if you're talking about paying your rent or your mortgage, many people have that done electronically. So it's out of sight, out of mind with regard to the fact that, the payment is taking place, and you don't seem to focus as much as far as that being a big part of your budget.
I think couple that with the fact that for many of us that have, with these interest rates being what they are, we've actually experienced lower mortgages. So the big ticket items like that are going in reverse. The big screen TV prices are coming down, our mortgages are getting cheaper, and the little things are going the opposite direction.
And you've got the issue where with monetary policy being, trying to impact interest rates, which tend to be on those bigger ticket items, as you mentioned, that tend to need to be purchased over time. We're seeing some reaction. You are seeing the housing market, as you mentioned, beginning to improve. Vehicle sales have topped 15 million vehicles, and that industry is doing fairly well. So I think that there have been some very positive effects that we can clearly see happening with regard to the economy, and in part due to the kind of policy that the Fed has moved forward with. And what we're trying to avoid is the kind of issues that the economy faced when the last time we had a financial crisis, which was the 1930s. And what happened back then was a clear failure on the part of the monetary authorities, the Federal Reserve back then. And that's something that Friedman wrote very extensively about. And in fact, that's what he won the Nobel Prize for, was his work with regard to understanding the factors that were involved with regard to the Great Depression.
There are so many different ways that we could take this conversation, and we could probably talk for hours and hours, and I hope you'll come back sometime and we can continue. But just because it's so large in the news right now, we've got some really, frightening things happening in Europe, particularly right now, the case of Cyprus. And you were just mentioning the 30s, and there are definitely some parallels there. To what extent does the United States have a vested interest in preventing something like that from happening? And if you could just briefly comment on the Fed's involvement in propping up the euro, I'd be very curious to hear your comment on that.
Well, in terms of anything dealing with foreign exchange, that's actually in the bailiwick of the U.S. Treasury Department, and so the Fed doesn't get involved with regard to that particular policy action, and nor do we.
So the Fed does not in any way assist the central banks of Europe?
We could get involved if certainly with regard to any kind of exchange rate action if we were requested by the U.S. Treasury to do some kind of policy action. But otherwise, no, we do not. In terms of you specifically asked about whether we would support the euro or try to do something with regard to the value of our currency. That would again be something that the U.S. government and through the Treasury would have to enact.
Is Treasury doing that?
Not that I'm aware of. We have not been requested to do anything with regard to the euro. You mentioned about the Cypriot situation, and I think the concern there from Europe's standpoint in particular, but it's an understanding that these financial markets are very tightly linked with each other. Cyprus itself is a tiny little country, right? It's a little over 1 million people, and this is something where the city of Chicago is substantially bigger. And yet this right now is roiling the markets in Europe, in part because of concerns about spillovers. What's happening in Cyprus, could that impact ultimately much larger economies who are in trouble, like Spain and Italy? And those kind of market forces, the financial forces, tend to move very quickly all around the world. They tend not to be limited just to the borders of the countries which maybe are struggling initially. And that's the kind of concerns that we would be thinking about and its impact on the U.S. market. So if I could, let me just finish up by, if we have just a few more minutes, just with regard to this view of what we're trying to do differently than what took place during the 1930s.
Sure, please go ahead.
During the 1930s, what happened was that the Fed, in fact, was increasing its monetary base, doing policy actions that a central bank supposedly was supposed to be doing. But ultimately, even though the monetary base was rising, the actual money supply continued to fall. This was due to a number of factors, and in fact, Friedman in his work doesn't even tend to refer to the Great Depression as the Great Depression, but often referred to it as the Great Contraction, because he felt that it was the collapse of the money supply, the decline in the money supply, that ultimately led to a large amount of trouble, such as deflation that was occurring during this period. And what was happening during the 1930s was, even though the Fed was increasing its balance sheet and thereby increasing the monetary base, putting out more and more currency and money into the economy, it was not enough to offset all of the collapsing that was taking place by the financial sector. Of all the bank runs, and I'm sure many of your listeners have seen the movie It's a Wonderful Life and saw what happens when a even healthy bank like the Bailey Building and Loan in that movie comes under intense pressure from depositors rushing to try to pull their money out. And certainly something that Cyprus is now being very concerned about when they reopen their banking system. We're doing this on late Friday, March 22nd, but they're going to be, concerned about when they reopen their banks on Monday or Tuesday, what might happen. So even though the Fed was increasing its monetary base in the 30s, the loss that was happening in the financial sector, where loans were not being created, but were actually being called, and bank failures caused depositors to pull money out and lose money, wound up that we saw a decline in the money supply. And as Friedman said, inflation always and everywhere is a monetary phenomena. Going along with the money supply decline, we saw the price level actually go down, deflation. take place. So I didn't have, actually, when I came out to Chicago to go to school, actually at the other school of note here in Chicago, Northwestern University, I did take a couple of classes from Chicago, but by that time, in the early 80s, Friedman had already retired from Chicago. But I was invited to his 90th birthday party that took place just over 10 years ago now, in the fall of 2002. And it was a fascinating event. There were probably about 70 people in the audience. I felt very honored to be invited to this group.
Oh, I can imagine. Milton Friedman is a great hero of this show.
And you know, it was your typical kind of University of Chicago celebration. Yes, there was cake at the very end, but it was an all-day seminar honoring the life's work of this professor. The keynote speaker that they brought in to address the group was the one professor who, after Friedman had retired, basically continued the research, became the world's leading expert on the Great Depression, financial markets in times of crises. And this Princeton University professor flew into Chicago to present the work of Professor Friedman. In fact, he had just left Princeton University to join the Board of Governors in the summer of 2002.
Okay, you're building some suspense here. Who
I'm
is
building suspense because some of your listeners probably already recognize the fact that expert who had just joined us from Princeton is Ben Bernanke.
Is that right?
And so Bernanke spent about half an hour. In fact, your listeners can find the speech on the Federal Reserve's website, federalreserve.gov. Look under Bernanke. I think it's only the second speech he gave as a member of the Fed. And he spent a half hour talking about the work of Professor Friedman and all the contributions. But at the very end of it, he turns to Friedman, who was sitting in the front row, and says, "You know, Milton," as a kind of quoted up here or put in my own words, you know, as a newly minted member of the Fed, I want to tell you, with regard to the Great Depression, yeah, that was our fault, the Fed's fault, for having had that happen. But, you know, but because of your work, we're just not going to let it happen again. And I thought, oh, isn't that cute? You know, telling a 90-year-old man that his life's work was not wasted, that it added to the understanding and the contributions of the profession. But it's interesting how, you know, a few years later, Bernanke leaves the Fed, becomes the head of the President's Council of Economic Advisors, and then when Chairman Greenspan's term is coming to an end and they're looking for a replacement, the President puts up Ben Bernanke, who gets confirmed by the U.S. Senate as the next chairman of the Fed. So with a little under 3 years before the financial crisis would rear its ugly head, you know, we have the world's leading expert on depressions, financial markets in times of stress, you know, leading the Fed. And, you know, say what you want about Bernanke. The one thing you can't say is that certainly the man is not a liar, because, you know, following through with his promise to Professor Friedman, the Fed has been very aggressive with regard to, you know, not just bringing up our balance sheet in a moderate pace, but taking it up quite substantially. And the after effects of that is that the money supply has continued to grow. Inflation, even though it's been, you know, moderate, and in fact now getting a little bit of disinflation, has continued to remain positive. So we have averted experiencing deflation, which brings all kinds of ills to begin with. And a lot of people don't quite appreciate all the challenges that deflation brings to an economy. People think, well, you know, things are going to be less expensive. Who wouldn't want to pay less for something? But they don't understand, or they can't appreciate that. That also means that if your employer isn't able to sell goods for more money, they're going to come back to the employees and say, you know, what I'm getting in terms of revenue is going down. I'm either going to have you lose your job, or you're going to have to take a cut in your wages. So there's a link between the pace of inflation or deflation along with salaries and wages. So that's why we certainly want to try to avoid deflation in an economy, because it can be a very, very tough battle to wage.
Excellent comment and excellent story about Dr. Friedman and Bernanke and so forth. I was curious if you ever had any interface. You'd mentioned Dr. Friedman so many times. Now, Bob, you are kind of our guest host on this segment, and you're a very inquisitive guy, which is why I invited you on. I'm going to give you a challenge right now to wrap up the conversation here. If you can fire off one question to Bill that he can answer with a yes or no question.
Yes or no might be a little tough. I do have something that came to mind as I listened to that great story. Having said all those great things and having managed our inflation and interest rate, I guess the thing that comes to my mind is at what cost? Where are we on the liability side? And what, maybe you could sum it up by telling us, what can we tell our children about the aftermath of this? What will happen down the road when we're gone and they're left with, whatever we've created in managing the last 10 years?
Are you talking about the debt, Bob?
The debt side of it, right.
Well, the debt side is related to the fiscal side. That's not part of what the monetary policy is all about.
But if interest rates rise even slightly, what does that not have an effect on all of the?
Oh, of course. In terms of the burden of financing the debt for the U.S. government, absolutely. So let me just deal with. I'll try to do this very quickly. The challenge for the Fed is going to be how do we, when market conditions return to somewhat, closer to a normalcy level, how does the Fed manage its balance sheet to bring that into line so that it does not have inflationary pressure? I mean, we're very much aware of those risks of getting it right, and we're going to do our best to make sure that inflation does not get out of control, and that's our ultimate responsibility. With regard to the federal side and the debt that has been built up, it is quite extensive. $16 trillion represents a substantial increase on a per capita basis from what it was. If you went back to the 1970s in real terms, the debt burden was around $10,000 per person. Now we're up to $53,000 per person. So it has been a very substantial increase that has taken place. And as you mentioned, Bob, it's currently at low interest rates. And the Fed, and we just came out with forecast this week of what we see with regard to the federal funds rate. And we see the federal funds rate probably beginning to show some increases beginning in 2015. And that will probably be reflected in other interest rates. So interest rates, will ultimately return back to more typical levels, and which are higher than they are currently. And then the question is how that ultimately impacts the ability to finance the government's debt, and it's going to be a burdensome issue, and it's certainly going to be another part of the challenge that the federal government's going to have to face. And we're not even talking about the issues in some of the state governments, such as the state of Illinois, where their fiscal situation is also in great distress.
Would it be fair to sum all of it up and say in the future it's really going to suck?
Well, I would say that, we have to work really hard to make sure that the future generations, because that's exactly what happens when you go into debt. When you run deficit spending, it's basically saying that the current generation, the current taxpayer base, is going to spend more than it's collecting in revenue. And therefore, ultimately, that is going to be borne by future generations. And sometimes there's very legitimate reasons why you want to transfer this burden, such as, what took place during World War II. The sacrifices that people were experiencing with all of the shortages that were taking place, the movement of our economy from a consumer base to a military-based economy, certainly, loss of life that was taking place. Well, to have that part of that expense funded by debt payments where, future generations would pay, well, there's some legitimacy there, in my opinion, because life was made better for those future generations because of sacrifices that took place during the 1940s by that existing generation. So I guess the question is, are we doing and putting things in place today that will be better for future generations, and hence, therefore, maybe some of that burden is appropriately to be placed on them through this deficit spending? and debt financing.
Okay, well, that's all reasonable. I'm still going to take it as a yes, though.
Okay.
I don't want to be a guest on your show and not honor your request. So let me just fire away one very quick yes/no question, which I think will interest everybody. To Bill Bernanke, will he return? Yes or no?
I have no idea.
Okay, your gut feeling.
I mean, it's the president's decision, President of the United States' decision, whether or not he even wishes to reappoint the chairman, and whether or not the chairman wishes to serve another 4 years.
When is his term up?
I'm not privy. It come up in January, the end of January.
Fair enough. Well, Bill, you are a Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago economist and a senior advisor, and man, we really appreciate you having the time and taking the time to appear on Fully Threaded Radio. We don't speak to too many people of your caliber, and we really do appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my pleasure joining you.
Well, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Smoke 'em if you got 'em. We'll be right back to wind up this episode of Fully Threaded Radio. Thanks for joining us, everyone.
For a selection of hundreds of thousands of fasteners, check out your local Fastenal store or Fastenal.com. We can stock domestic or internationally sourced product locally and keep your bin stock filled for you at no additional expense. We are a 9001-2008 certified company that's made a huge investment in quality control so you don't have to. And if you can't find it on our shelf, we can make it for you at the quantity you need at one of our many manufacturing facilities. Learn more by contacting your local Fastenal store or visiting Fastenal.com today.
Hi, everybody. This is Sue Rice of the FCH team with an exciting new option for FCH members. If you're already an FCH member, then we've probably had a conversation or two, since it's my job to make sure that everything runs smoothly for you as you participate in the network. That includes reminding you when it's time to renew your annual membership. Now we have a new program that just might be right for you: quarterly payments. This new option lets you pay for your FCH membership automatically at the start of each quarter, allowing you to split your payments over time and leaving you one less thing to be concerned about. And don't worry, I'll still be calling you on a regular basis to make sure things look good with your FCH account. After all, that's my job. If you have questions about our new quarterly payments program, contact us through our website at www.fastenersclearinghouse.com or email me directly at sue@fastenersclearinghouse.com. Thank you for using the FCH Sourcing Network, and we'll talk soon.
Hi, this is Hugh Hewitt for the Injured Marine Semper Fi Fund, www.semperfifund.org. Over the past 7 years, twice a year, the wonderful people who operate the Semper Fi Fund and many amazing Marines who have been the beneficiaries of the charities that have supported the Semper Fi Fund, including many thousands of individual donors, have come into my radio studio to tell their amazing stories of serving their country, of being wounded, and how the Semper Fi Fund has helped them make that transition back to recovery. Unfortunately, Bethesda and Walter Reed are full again. More and more men and women are coming back from the war injured, sometimes awfully so. We need the Semper Fi Fund to be there for these Marines and those soldiers, sailors, and airmen who served alongside of them. Please consider a gift to the Semper Fi Fund. Very low overhead, extraordinary capacity to get money where it needs to get in a hurry, and great management, including some of the senior Marines who've ever served under the flag. When you're looking for something to do that will make an impact, please check out the Semper Fi Fund. That's www.semperfifund.org, www.semperfifund.org.
Once you're in this industry, you're not getting out. Good thing there's Fully Threaded Radio. Talk radio for the fastener industry.
This is Bill Johansson from Delta Secondary in Bensenville, Illinois, the fastener distributor source for all specials and secondary operations. And you are listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Brian and Eric back with you, monetizing our debt the old-fashioned way.
One penny at a time.
One screw at a time, my friend.
Oh, okay. Right. Oh, that's a great interview, that one. I mean, that guy, I have to go back and listen to that, and I'm really glad that the MWFA actually got him as a speaker.
Yeah, well, Bill Strauss was a great choice, and I agree with you. You can listen to that several times. Of course, I had to listen to it a few times while I was doing the production, and each time you get a little bit more out of it. And, of course, we thank Bob Baer for jumping in with us on that. He's a great one to ask very penetrating questions. And, the MWFA, again, they did a great job, and that's what the associations are really good for, is lining those kinds of things up. I see the dinner meeting coming up for the Pac-West. Of course, that'll probably be over by the time most people hear this, but they've got a dinner meeting that they're going to be all talking about hydrogen embrittlement. That's a topic that you never run out of.
That's your favorite subject, I would have thought, isn't it?
Well, I have a little fun with it, but obviously it's critical to the industry. And, of course, the NFDA's got their big summer meeting coming up. Actually, I just got off of a conference call with several of the folks over there, Vicki Lester and Sarah Mallow, Russ Doran. I'll be moderating a panel discussion at that meeting. That's taking place on, when is it, June 13th, in connection with their summer meeting. And, of course, that's dovetailing on Fastener Tech 13 in Rosemont, Illinois, June 10th through the 13th. So I hope everybody's out there. Actually, excuse me, that's the 10th through the 12th.
We'll see you there, okay?
I'll be there.
Right, after fishing.
Actually, that's just before this year, Bri.
Oh, okay, you're right.
But one way or another, hopefully a lot of fully threaded listeners will be out there. And let's take a moment to thank our guests on today's episode. And they were from the Olander Company, Lou Boyd.
You mean the slightly more positive Lou Boyd?
From the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, Mr. William Strauss. Bob Baer was our guest co-host on that segment. Thanks so much, Bob. And as always, Mike McNulty presented the Fastener News Report. His guest on today's episode was Steve Paddock, new chairman of the IFI. Thanks to you all.
Yes, thanks.
Our great title sponsor on today's episode was Stelfast. For service you deserve and people you trust, it's Stelfast. Also, Trinity Hardware Headquarters, Fastenal, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Fastener Technology International Magazine. Contact us, folks, and you can do that at the email address ftr@fullythreaded.com. We're also out there on Twitter, and you know the handle, it's Fully Threaded. So, Bri, before we wrap it up, during our recent swing through Wisconsin, we stopped by to see our buddies up at K&L Sales, John Butler and Marty Meyer, and it was fantastic to finally make it up to their facility as well, huh?
Right. Yeah, another credit to Waze to navigate us there. Right. Even though Marty gave me a lesson on why I should throw my iPhone away and get an Android device.
Yes, he was very adamant about that. They're coming out of the woodwork lately.
Right. Yeah.
Well, one way or another, we made it into their parking lot. And I got to say, if we're going to be experiencing some of the turmoil that a lot of us are thinking based on all this economic news and so forth, the one way that we can survive it all is by just getting out there and working harder and making better relationships and selling more.
Yeah, right. I think people like to put a face to a name, and we saw that particularly. It's very good. You know, people I've talked to for bloody years. It's good to see them.
Yeah. And, of course, there's a lot of people out there in the audience that are just laughing at us right now because, there's
right.
A lot of road warriors, and here we are just learning all of this as we go along. Matter of fact, I was talking to the indefatigable Tom Buddenbone about our trip, and he kind of laughed at me. He has his special Southwest slant on the whole thing, and I think you'll get a kick out of this. When he goes on one of these little road trips, he calls it his time for tacos and cigars.
Yeah, well, when I first arrived in the U.S., it was 1984, and I arrived and was sent to Texas. That's when I realized that at that stage, it's completely politically incorrect now, of course, but people actually did judge their distances, road travel, based on how many beers you could drink. So a trip to Austin was a six-pack. I always remember that. You can't do that now, of course.
No, you can't. And it's something that I'm sure Tom would never do either. So.
No, but he would remember it, though.
Well, let's just count our blessings that you can still get away with eating tacos and smoking cigars in your own car.
Right.
And with that, we'll wrap up this episode of Fully Threaded Radio, and we thank you all so much for listening in, folks.
Drive safely, listen to Fully Threaded, and we'll catch you next time.
That we will. For Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there and sell some screws, everyone, and we'll talk to you next time.
Fully Threaded Radio is a production of Fastener's Clearinghouse. Music provided by Audionautics.
Who's that then? I don't know. Must be a king. Why? He hasn't got shit all over him.